call to order this 11 May 2026 City Council meeting. Mr. Wood, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Wood. Councilman Sloat is going to be a little late, but he is on his way. Item 2 is the adoption of the meeting agenda. Is there a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Short. Is there a second?
I second.
Thank you, Mr. Comby. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it 4-0. Item 3, matters from the mayor. A few things. First, happy birthday to Mr. Wood.
Oh, birthday.
He is 60 years old today,
You have to tell everybody.
Oh, wow.
so just wanted to put that out there. Also, we have a number of proclamations that we're going to be reading, and I just wanted to acknowledge one that won't be a proclamation, but I wanted to acknowledge May as Military Appreciation Month. And so we say thank you to all of our servicemen and women who are currently serving and all of our veterans. And so we have a lot of folks that have served. Matter of fact, we have a city worker, I think, that is still currently deployed. So we thank you all for your service. On 29 April, Councilman Wood, Councilman Sloat, and Vice Mayor Comby and I were present for the Kiwanis Loaf Springs Natural Area opening. It's a beautiful little park that sits off the Greenway. And so thanks to the Kiwanis, and also thanks to our Parks and Rec Department for being a part of that project. It's really beautiful. On 30 April, the city manager and I were at the Fairfax Hall grand reopening. They've done a lot of work, and it looks great if you haven't seen it. It's one of the efforts that we're still trying to tackle is affordable housing, so we were really excited about partnering with them on that particular project. And then tomorrow, I'll be at Sunset Park at 6 p.m. for the Sunset Park Hiking and Biking Trail grand opening. And that's all I have. Item 4 is matters from council.
Well, we were also at the pitch night for the economic development,
Thank you.
encouraging new business. A lot of good ideas that were pitched that night after they worked, I think it was a 7-week business program. All the rumors of someone trying to put a bowling alley in Waynesboro apparently won first place and got a nice fat little check from a grant through economic development. So we're looking forward to that and plenty of other new businesses coming into Waynesboro. Also, we had the open house for the comprehensive plan the other night too, that Leslie and her team put together. It was a nice event, good and eventful and very informative. So we're thankful that a lot of the citizens came out to take part in that night as well.
Thank you. Thank you. Anybody? Okay. Item 5 is consideration of the consent agenda. Is there a motion to adopt the consent agenda?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Short. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Wood. Is there any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it 4-0. All right, here's the fun part. Item 6 is to present a proclamation naming the week of May 10th through May 16th, 2026 as National Police Week and Peace Officers Memorial Day on May 15th, 2026. Whereas the Congress and President of the United States have designated May 15th as Peace Officers Memorial Day and the week in which it falls as National Police Week, and whereas the members of law enforcement for the city of Waynesboro play an essential role in safeguarding the rights and freedoms of the citizens of Waynesboro, and whereas it is important that all citizens know and understand the duties, responsibilities, hazards, and sacrifices of their law enforcement officers, and whereas members of our police department recognize their duty to serve the citizens by safeguarding life and property, protecting them against violence and disorder, and by protecting the innocent against deception and the weak against oppression or intimidation. And whereas the police department for the city of Waynesboro has grown to be a modern law enforcement agency that it unceasingly provides a vital public service. Now, therefore, I, Kenneth B. Lee, Senior Mayor, on behalf of the City Council of Waynesboro, call upon all citizens and upon all patriotic, civic, and educational organizations to observe the week of May 11th through 16th, 2026 as Police Week, with the appropriate acknowledgement in which all of our citizens may honor law enforcement officers, past and present, who by their faithful and loyal devotion to the responsibilities have rendered a dedicated service to the communities, and in doing so, have established for themselves an inviolable and enduring reputation for preserving the rights and security for all citizens. I further call upon all citizens of Waynesboro to observe Friday, May 15th, 2026 as Peace Officers Memorial Day to honor those peace officers who, through their courageous deeds, have lost their lives or have become disabled in the performance of duty. In witness whereof I have hereunto set my hand and caused the seal of the city of Waynesboro, Virginia, to be affixed this 11th day of May, 2026. Chief, you out there?
Need your signature. And he's giving it so fast. I got you.
So I just want to take a few moments. I know tonight's agenda is full, so I'll be brief in my remarks. But on behalf of the police department, the men and women that serve this community as police officers, I just want to say thank you. One of the great things about Waynesboro is we don't hold the recognition and support to just 1 week a year. A lot of that is carried through in our work daily, through our partnerships and collaboration within the community. You know, when you talk about there's over 800,000 law enforcement officers across the United States, and also with that, there's a number of individuals over the years that unfortunately have paid the ultimate sacrifice through this line of work. It's reassuring to know that here in Waynesboro, our success is largely measured by the partnership and collaborations that we have within this community. A lot of those folks are represented in this room tonight, whether it's individuals, representatives of groups, the elected body, city staff, other city departments. We're only successful because of those partnerships and collaboration. And I'd just like to close with saying, you know, in the last few years, we've seen a remarkable improvement in the support and the initiatives and giving us the resources and the staffing that we need to be successful. And those are measurable achievements. Those metrics are improving, and I hope that individuals see that work on a daily basis. So again, I'd just like to close with thank you, and we appreciate this.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, Chief Joe.
Item 7 is to present a proclamation naming the week of May 17th as Public Works Week.
And Mr. Mayor, my pleasure to read the following proclamation. Whereas public works professionals provide essential infrastructure, services, and programs that form the system supporting our community and the everyday lives of the citizens of Waynesboro, Virginia. And whereas these systems could not be provided without the dedicated efforts of public works professionals who are responsible for maintaining our transportation and drainage infrastructure, water supply, wastewater collection and treatment, and solid waste systems and services that are essential for our citizens. And whereas the support of our informed community is essential to successful public works operations and programs such as water, sewer, streets, stormwater, refuse collection, and snow removal. And whereas the year 2026 marks the 27th year that Waynesboro has celebrated National Public Works Week with a special occasion. Now, therefore, we, the Waynesboro City Council, do hereby proclaim the week of May 17th through the 23rd, 2026 as Public Works Week in the city of Waynesboro, and call upon all community in the community to acquaint themselves with the Public Works Department and to recognize the contributions of public works professionals that make every day to our health, safety, comfort, and quality of life. signed by all of us up here.
I'll keep my remarks brief as well, since, like Chief Shaw said, I know you all have a busy meeting tonight. But good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of council. On behalf of the men and women of Public Works, thank you for the support you show our department throughout the year, not just during Public Works Week. As many of you know, there really is no off-season in Public Works. Much like our fellow employees in law enforcement and emergency services, the work continues regardless of weather, holidays, or conditions. I'd especially like to recognize several outstanding employees who are here with me tonight. During this winter snowstorm response, 2 of those employees had just started their careers with the city. One employee clocked in at 12:01 a.m. on his very first day and spent the duration of the storm operating heavy equipment during the snowstorm. Another walked to work at 7 a.m. expecting to ride a trash truck. When trash collection was suspended because of the storm, he simply stepped in wherever help was needed. Other staff members repaired water and sewer main breaks in sub-freezing temperatures before returning to snow removal operations. Those stories are only a small example of the dedication, perseverance, and teamwork our employees demonstrate every day. The mission of the City of Waynesboro's Department of Public Works is to provide safe, reliable, essential services and infrastructure to our community. Whether it's maintaining streets, collecting refuse, providing clean water, treating wastewater, responding to storms, or preparing for the next season, our employees work every day behind the scenes to help keep this community running. When one season ends, another begins. Snow operations transition into paving, mowing, leak detection, storm preparation, leaf collection, and then back again to winter readiness. The work is constant, but so is our commitment to the community we serve. So while there is no off-season, Public Works Week is an opportunity to acknowledge the community we are fortunate to be a part of and to recognize the people behind those services, the employees who quietly show up every day to do difficult and essential work for the community. On behalf of all of Public Works, thank you to Council for this recognition and for your continued support of our employees and the work they do for our community. We also look forward to sharing more about the people and services behind Public Works throughout next week. So, thank you all.
Thank you.
Item 8 is to present a proclamation naming May as Building Safety Month.
And I shall read this one. Proclamation, Building Safety Month, May 2026. Whereas the City of Waynesboro, Virginia is committed to recognizing that our growth and strength depend on the safety and essential role our homes, buildings, and infrastructure play, both in everyday life and when disasters strike. And whereas our confidence in the resilience of these buildings that make up our community is achieved through the devotion of vigilant guardians, building safety and fire prevention officials, architects, engineers, builders, tradespeople, design professionals, laborers, plumbers, and others in the construction industry who work year-round to ensure the safe construction of buildings. And whereas these guardians are dedicated members of the International Code Council, ICC, a nonprofit that brings together local, state, territorial, tribal, and federal officials who are experts in the built environment to create and implement the highest quality codes and standards to protect us in the buildings where we live, learn, work, and play. And whereas these modern building codes and standards include safeguards to protect the public from hazards such as hurricanes, snowstorms, tornadoes, wildland fires, floods, and earthquakes. And whereas Building Safety Month is sponsored by ICC to remind the public about the critical role of our community's largely unknown protectors of public safety, our code officials, who assure us of safe, sustainable, and affordable buildings that are essential to our prosperity. And whereas Built to Last, the theme for Building Safety Month 2026, encourages us all to get involved and raise awareness about building safety on a personal, local, and global scale. And whereas each year, in observance of Building Safety Month, people all over the world are asked to consider the commitment to improve building safety, resilience, and economic investment at home and in the community, and to acknowledge the essential service provided to all of us by local, state, tribal, territorial, and federal building safety and fire prevention departments in protecting lives and property. Now, therefore, I, Kenneth B. Lee Sr., Mayor, City of Waynesboro, Virginia, do hereby proclaim the month of May 2026 as Building Safety Month. Accordingly, I encourage our citizens to join us as we participate in Building Safety Month activities. Signed, Kenneth B. Lee Sr., Mayor, City of Waynesboro, Virginia. Who has the pick?
I'd like to just take a moment to thank you all for acknowledging this important factor in our lives. You know, the element of construction safety. It's a lot of times it flies under the radar, but it's a very important element of our lives. And I think as the proclamation was being read, it occurred to me, you know, a lot of the building codes, they're designed for disasters. They're designed for, you know, high winds and high snow loads and extremes. So, you know, so when we do get a storm come through, we can feel safe and secure knowing that, you know, our homes are going to be intact at the end of the day. And we appreciate all the contractors that we work with and all their efforts, and of course our staff, which some are here today. They very, very professional, very, very great people to work with, and the citizens of Waynesboro, great people to work with as well. So thank you all.
Thank you.
All right, item 9. Item 9 is to consider adopting an ordinance amending the zoning map upon application by Wells Land Development LLC, amending properties for tax map numbers 31-1-18, 31-1-108B, and 32-2-1B, located at 0 Forest Drive and 0 Bookerdale Road, also known as Silver Creek Subdivision, Waynesboro, Virginia. Mr. Ham.
Sir, I don't have anything to add this evening other than the process has brought us to this point. The ordinance was introduced, seconded, and discussed Friday, and so unless there's additional question or discussion among council, you're free to call the question.
Any questions from council? All in favor of adopting the ordinance amending the proper, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Ayes have it, 4-1. Item 10 is consider adopting an ordinance imposing taxes for calendar year 2026. Mr. McCormick or Mr. Ham?
Actually, it's me.
Okay.
So items 10, 11, and 12 all relate to the budget, and I don't have any additional remarks this evening. So As was the case previously, these ordinances have been subject to a public hearing, introduced, properly seconded, and discussed. So unless there are additional questions or consideration from council, you're free to call the question.
Any questions from council?
I think my notes might be a little incomplete on this.
Yes, sir. All those in favor of considering adopting an ordinance imposing taxes for calendar year 2026, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it 5-0. Item 11 is considered adopting an ordinance amending section 66-3C, 66-3F, 86-28A, and 86-139A of the City Code Utilities. Anything to add, Mr. Ham?
No, sir.
All in favor of adopting the ordinance amending the specified code sections and establishing the utility rates, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it 5-0. Item 12 is considered adopting an ordinance establishing the annual budget for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2027. All in favor of adopting the ordinance amending the specified code sections and establishing the budget for FY 2027, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it 5-0. Item 13 is to hold two separate public hearings and consider introducing two ordinances. The first is to amend the zoning map by rezoning a 3-acre portion of tax map number 41-3-112 located at 0 Ludwig Boulevard from RG5 General Residential to HB Highway Business. Applicant is Rosser Development LLC. Mr. Ham,
Ms. Tate will provide a staff report.
Ms. Tate.
So the two public hearings before you this evening, one is a zoning map amendment, and the other is a conditional use permit request for multifamily residential in the highway business zoning district. So the two really go together, and I'll explain that as I move through the presentation. So the star here represents the general location of the property. The property is outlined in red. You can see the adjacent development, Walmart, the Creekwood Village subdivision, the recently developed Secure Store, Pratt's Run subdivision across the street, and then also Lowe's in the vicinity, as well as the future location of the Tiger Wash. This just shows the intersection, so the Ludwig and Bryant Drive intersection. So the property in question is over here, kind of behind these trees. And this is kind of showing that from the Ludwig and Ridgeline Drive intersection, so that a different angle. So the request kind of is representative of two parts. So the first is a zoning map amendment to rezone a 3-acre portion of tax map number 41-3-112 from RG5, which is our general residential, to highway business. This small 3-acre portion kind of reverts this portion of the parcel back to its original rezoning of highway business prior to the time that it was rezoned to RG5 with the Creekwood Village subdivision in 2020. So you can see the highway business zoning here, and then that adjacent RG5 zoning. It just shows the two separate parcels. And this area here is representative of that portion of the property where the request is to amend the zoning from RG5 to highway business to match the remainder of that other parcel. And then the second part of the request is a conditional use permit for multifamily residential in the highway business district. So currently in our highway business zoning district, you can have apartments that are not on the ground floor. But if you want to have a complete multifamily development in highway business without a ground floor business use, then you do need a conditional use permit. So this request is for tax map 41-3-115 and that 3-acre portion. It proposes 232 apartments across 4 buildings along with a clubhouse, and multifamily is permitted in this zoning district with a conditional use permit. This shows kind of a general concept of the layout of the buildings and the parking, the proposed clubhouse, the connection over here to the signalized intersection of Lou DeWitt Bryant Drive, and the connection also to Ridgeline Drive and its intersection with Lou DeWitt. These are kind of general building renderings of what the proposed apartments would look like from the outside. And another one of those that was provided by the applicant. The comprehensive plan designates this area for business use. So some of the zoning standards related to this request. So in order to have a residential use in business zoning, in order to apply for that conditional use permit, the parcel must be larger than 20,000 square feet, which this one is. And then it also identifies that other area and dimensional standards related to the residential use would be set through the conditional use permit process. And you'll notice that as we go through some of the proposed staff recommended conditions. So the project area is over 11 acres. And there were some conditions that were recommended prior to the Planning Commission meeting, and then some additional conditions that we're recommending before you, and so I'll cover all of those. This just shows the conceptual layout again. So when staff begins to analyze kind of the best use for the property, certainly we're looking at various factors. What is the potential use of this property for residential over commercial, and kind of what are the pros and cons of that? So we did consult with our economic development department to see kind of their thoughts on the viability of the property for a commercial use. They did note that there were some limitations from a commercial development standpoint. The distance from I-64, limited frontage on Lou DeWitt, and some limited access points. Again, these are for particular types of commercial uses. They did note that it could possibly be marketed as a hotel site or for daycare. Storage units is another option, or some kind of outdoor entertainment. Staff notes that residential is not out of place on this parcel, kind of for the surrounding kind of mixed use nature of the area. So often, you're also looking at the impacts of the proposed use to adjacent properties. So staff notes that the project is mostly surrounded by commercial uses, so it's not likely to have an adverse impact on the neighboring commercial uses. But you do want to consider how potentially adjacent commercial uses could have an adverse impact on the multifamily development. Staff recommends a condition requiring a Class C landscaping buffer around all project area boundaries. Staff has noted in the condition that as much existing mature vegetation would be preserved as possible. If you'll remember from the earlier picture, there are kind of a significant stand of trees along the frontage. So if that could be maintained, and then where existing vegetation is removed, staff does recommend a Class C buffer per that section of the zoning ordinance, which is a minimum of 20 feet in width, and it requires it typically requires a wall, fence, or berm in addition to the landscaping, and staff felt like the wall, fence, or berm might not be applicable or necessary in certain areas to have the same effect. So staff's recommending that that not be required unless in certain locations as staff evaluates, we could make that determination that it would be helpful to meet the intention of the landscaping and buffering in that area. Another component that is looked at is transportation. So the project does propose 2 access points. So Bryant Drive and Lou DeWitt, which is a light-controlled intersection, and then Ridgeline Drive near Lou DeWitt. It does meet fire code requirements for multifamily developments that have to have 2 ingress-egress points with more than 200 units. A traffic analysis was completed based on certain factors that staff was asking the applicant to review. So storage length of existing turn lanes, signal timing for the traffic light at Lou DeWitt and Bryant Drive, and then some evaluation of pedestrian crossings at the Lou DeWitt and Bryant Drive intersection. This just kind of shows the general concept layout overlaid onto the aerial, so you can see kind of the existing uses. Staff will note that at the Planning Commission meeting, there was some concern about how the apartment use might impact the Ridgeline Drive and Lou DeWitt intersection. So since that time, staff has done some additional kind of research and requested some additional input from VDOT related to the Creekwood Village subdivision and the traffic analysis that was proposed at its original development. So at the time when Creekwood Village was created, their traffic impact study planned for 600 residential units. What has actually occurred at Creekwood Village is closer to 350 residential units. That traffic impact analysis, in addition to that increased number of residential units, also included a significant amount of commercial development on the adjacent property. So that's where the Secure Store has now located. There are some additional properties that are undeveloped that could develop there. But after kind of reviewing all of that with VDOT and the fact that the original Creekwood study only had 2 access points, and this will create 2 additional, so 4 total, VDOT really felt like there weren't significant concerns at the Ridgeline Lou DeWitt intersection based on those changes, and then the Secure Store being significantly less of a traffic generator than the type of commercial use that was envisioned as part of that study. And I know all that's a little confusing, so if you have any questions, please feel free. Another component that was evaluated is the infrastructure. So public water is available. Public sewer is not easily accessible. At one point, the applicants did propose a private pump station to serve this development. Staff does believe that the project would be more reliably served by gravity sewer because it is a dense multifamily development rather than a commercial use, which would likely have less sewer demand than 232 apartments. So staff has discussed extending gravity sewer across Lou DeWitt with the applicant, and they do plan to look into the feasibility of that. So staff did propose a condition that gravity sewer will be required unless staff determines during site plan review that it is not feasible or for some reason how that sewer gets extended is not in the best interest of the public system. We always reach out to the school system to kind of get an identification of where they are with their school enrollment numbers. This project is in the Westwood Hills District. The school system notes that they do not have concerns regarding school capacity currently. You can see here for Westwood Hills Elementary, and these numbers are September 2025, and that's when they kind of update those, or the next update hasn't occurred yet, but they mentioned that they don't expect a major difference in these numbers from what we've seen. So multifamily residential is permitted in the Highway Business District with a conditional use permit. The rezoning of that small 3-acre portion from RG5 to highway business allows it to be included in the conditional use permit application. So these requests really kind of go together. The rental market in the city remains extremely tight. Adding new units will help that. The applicant will be able to speak a bit on their other project at Town Center Drive and kind of the leasing numbers on that to give you a better feel for that. We did note that the project area may be difficult to market exclusively as a commercial use, and that mixed use or residential development is a reasonable alternative for this property. Extending gravity sewer will open opportunities for future development along Lou DeWitt and provide that to adjacent properties. The recommended conditions address our zoning ordinance requirements, any staff concerns, and then compatibility with the area. So part 1, the Planning Commission does recommend approval of the rezoning request to rezone the 3-acre portion from RG5 to highway business. It does comply with the comprehensive plan's future land use map for business zoning in that area, and it does revert that portion of the parcel back to its original zoning pre the Creekwood rezoning. And then the recommendation, kind of the second part, is that the Planning Commission does recommend approval of the conditional use permit request for multifamily residential in the highway business zoning district. As I mentioned at the time, there were only a certain number of conditions that staff had proposed, and there are 2 additional ones that are highlighted here, but I will review them all. And the 2 additional ones highlighted really came from, the Planning Commission recommended approval, but they had some general traffic and pedestrian connectivity concerns and asked us to do a little bit more work on those in the interim, and we've done those and added those additional. So it's not against any recommendation of the Planning Commission, it's actually meeting their recommendation to look into those in a bit more detail. So the first condition is that the development will be developed in conformance with that concept layout that has been identified. These numbers might be wrong as we received an update on that layout today, very minor update, just adding some labels and things. But what you've seen is the general layout of the buildings, the number of buildings is the concept plan that they would be kind of required to generally follow. The maximum number of residential units would not exceed 232. The Class C buffer would be required along all boundaries of the property, priority given to keeping existing vegetation. Where it cannot be kept, the Class C buffer would be installed, and then that requirement for a wall, fence, or berm would be waived except where determined to be necessary during site plan review. The next condition is that a gravity sewer system is required to serve the development. If city staff determines that a gravity sewer system is not feasible, or presents service, maintenance, or other issues that make gravity sewer to be not in the best interest of the public sewer system, an alternative system such as a pump or forced lateral can be used. So that would be worked out at site plan with the determination of city staff. The next condition is that buildings shall not exceed a maximum building height as measured per the City of Waynesboro zoning ordinance of 60 feet. And then the two additional conditions recommended since the Planning Commission meeting is to install a high visibility crosswalk along the south side of Lou DeWitt at its intersection with Bryant Drive, an ADA accessible landing on the corner of Lou DeWitt and Bryant Drive, pedestrian crossing signals and appropriate signal modifications to permit for safe pedestrian crossing. And this would include a crossing study, if required, to be completed as part of this condition. So originally, staff had not recommended a condition for a pedestrian crossing because there is not receiving infrastructure on the low side. That did come up as a concern from the public at the Planning Commission meeting and from planning commissioners. So we reached back out to VDOT for some initial input, and they felt like even though there's no receiving infrastructure, at a minimum, if an ADA compliant landing on the other side of the street was provided, that we could, or it would create a safe crossing at that location. And then the other condition, just related to traffic analysis and how things move throughout. I don't believe it was the applicant's desire at all to block off anything through their development, but VDOT just asked and recommended that a public easement for ingress egress through the property from Ridgeline Drive to Bryant Drive would be granted during the site plan approval process, just to make sure that any of the traffic that the general public could travel through to get to the signalized intersection. So that's all I have. The applicant is here to speak on their requests, but I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Are there plans for sidewalks along Lou DeWitt, similar to what Secure Store has
Yes,
to connect?
yes.
Define receiving infrastructure for those of us that don't know, please.
So on the low side, there's no sidewalk. So if we put a crossing there, it would be a crossing to a curb. So, if you're not an able-bodied person and you're in a wheelchair, you can't get up onto that. So to direct people in that way, we might be saying this is the safe crossing, but then not providing that kind of full infrastructure. So at first, the recommendation was just don't have them do a crossing at all. We'll wait until sidewalks exist in front of Lowe's, and then we could make that connection. But certainly the question always comes up of who's responsible for that, and why don't we get it now if the development is happening? So after reaching back out to VDOT, they felt like even if we weren't going to have sidewalk yet across the Lowe's frontage, if the developer in city right-of-way was to provide for an ADA compliant landing, so to not have that curb situation, that it would be recommended to have it.
Okay, thank you.
Does the gravity sewer system,
Yes.
what type of issues would make that not feasible?
The only thing that I have heard from Public Works and some of the engineering department, and the applicant may be able to speak to this a little bit also, is just, without it being engineered or designed, if there was some kind of depth issue or there was some reason why, and I don't know what all that looked like, but if the city said, oh, the only way they're able to get it there, that's not some kind of astronomical cost is, would make our system not what we would like in terms of depth or any other number of things, that we could maybe look at something else. But it's certainly the desire of the city, without any of that being done yet, to have it be extended as gravity sewer.
How far along in the project did they go before that decision was made?
So once they started to submit the site plan, that's when we would be reviewing that. So none of that has come through yet, but I would assume that if they receive approval from council on the rezoning and the conditional use permit and rezoning, that they would move quickly to site plan review.
A couple questions. So the first is just a question to recollection of what's the maximum height of our ladder truck? It's going to get to the 60-foot along a large corridor. We're not getting more land. The annexation ban is not going to ever get lifted, and it seems, I don't know, maybe just arbitrary a little bit to hold it at 60. I would just be curious if our new ladder truck could accommodate something larger. So
I'm not sure about that, but I do know that that number wasn't based on something they like fire restricted and said. It was purely that in our zoning ordinances, it says we'll just set that standard during this process. So we asked them, how tall do you envision going? And it was like 60 feet.
Yeah.
But it wasn't something that fire said, we need you to keep it lower, if that
yeah,
helps.
and that's what I was like, because I kind of remember that it's that we, when it's on the planning commission and we set the 60-foot, it was based off of our current assets, right? And so I think our ladder truck exceeds that now, because I think we did that in 2007. So just for giggles. The next is, I didn't hear it, but I'll just sort of ask it. Has there been any offer or consideration or commitment or any discussion from the applicant at all related to providing any percentage of these units at below market rate?
We have had the conversation that we know it's something that the council desires and is important to council. So we have communicated that to the applicant, but we have not received any commitments for that they would just be market rate.
Okay. Hard to tell on the conceptual site plan, but just ask the question. I don't see a sidewalk on Bryant Drive to the egress ingress into the development.
I think so. It wraps around. Yeah. So I think this is.
Yeah, it's just not called out.
Okay. Yeah, I think the intention is that they're supposed to have it, but
Okay, so I'll flag that one.
Sure.
All right, okay. And then the next was just more of a legal question, just out of curiosity, because it goes, I would imagine it goes effect July 1, unless there was a delay on it. But the newly passed General Assembly provision of highway business and in the future, would communities like Waynesboro have a voice in denying or having adjacent consideration for residential, permitting that by right in a highway business district? As I understand the new, if you're familiar with that bill that was passed, and I believe the governor signed it, would preclude our ability to establish any requirements such as a conditional use permit on a highway business.
That's my understanding of.
This might be the last one, then,
Yes.
right? Yeah, okay.
and so staff kind of was following that bill and identifying so with, there are some conditions that we're recommending with this application that if this bill moves forward and we get these requests, that we would not have the ability to get.
We could say pretty please, I guess.
Sure.
We could say that. Okay. Okay, cool. That's all I have.
To that note, does the 3 acres increase the total number of units? Would they be restricted with just the 8? Because as of right now, they're only at 8, and I don't know if that would restrict it to a lower portion.
So, that might be a better question for the applicant in terms of their actual layout on the concept plan, but as far as our zoning ordinance is concerned, we typically operate off of a 20 units per acre type number for our multifamily. If it's a conditional use permit and highway business, we don't have that maximum, but, typically we follow the 20 units per acre. So it's a little more flexible in that our zoning doesn't specifically tie us to anything, but I think they would certainly say to get it all to fit, it could likely affect those overall numbers.
Yeah, because my fuzzy math was, well, the applicant here, but it looks like an entire building
Yeah.
wouldn't be feasible, the clubhouse wouldn't be feasible, and that's probably it. Because, I think you'd probably be able to hit the parking otherwise, but. In the stormwater management area, well, you could probably still use stormwater management with residential, but.
So is the applicant for sure going to be speaking tonight, or we have choice in the matter?
Yeah, they have signed up to speak
Oh, okay.
for the public hearing, yes.
Any other questions for?
I don't have anything. See, that's why I almost feel like it's a little bit of a missed opportunity. Yeah, so we're 75 to 100 foot on the ladder truck. So that's what sort of begs the question of you at a minimum, you're probably missing an entire additional floor. And the only reason I bring that up is I'm not saying let's go build as many apartments as we possibly can, but we also are running out of land, right? At some point, we're going to run out of land. And so vertical is the solution. And if we have apparatus that we've paid a lot of money for to make available to service the community, it only seems reasonable to see if there are opportunities to go higher, but.
Any other questions for Leslie? Okay, so what I'll do is I'll open up the public hearing, the first public hearing for the zoning amendment. Hereby open up the public hearing for the zoning amendment, and I'll give the applicants an opportunity to speak first.
Good evening, council members. My name is Bill Moore with Westwood Professional Services, formerly Balzer and Associates, who have been providing engineering consultation for the applicant. With me tonight is the applicant, Garrett, and my colleague of mine, Ben, and I'll turn it over to them to provide some more information, and then we'll answer questions, and we would ask for the chance to do a rebuttal on any of the other public comments that come up afterwards. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor Lee, members of council. I'm Ben Crew with Balzer and Associates. Bill, appreciate the introduction. We're going to walk through a couple of highlights with you all for just a minute, and then I'll invite Garrett up to the podium. I'm not going to restate what Ms. Tate went through, but I would like to hit a few highlights and answer some of the initial questions that you all brought up as we're looking at this. So, appreciate the opportunity to share some additional background. Our team is taken a long time to get to this point. We're excited to be with you all this evening. We had our first pre-submittal meeting about 12 months ago to discuss this project. Obviously, it involves a team from our side. We've taken into account a lot of staff comments, including feedback from VDOT that we've kind of been through this evening, and we're excited about our positive recommendation from Planning Commission. So, walking through this a little bit, I'd like to kind of walk through the conditions by staff and break these down a little bit. So, we talked about 5 of those conditions at the Planning Commission meeting, which we're tremendously comfortable with. Obviously, we're making a commitment to you all with those conditions that we're going to build what we say we're going to build. What we're showing on our concept plan and our elevations and our narrative is exactly what we're going to provide as part of the project. So, conformance with the concept plan, maximum number of units, the Class C buffer, the gravity sewer requirement, and then the max height that we just talked about a little bit ago. I want to comment just briefly, and this may involve a couple of questions that we'll come back to, but the 6th condition is a little bit unique for this particular property related to the pedestrian accommodations or proposed pedestrian accommodations across Lou DeWitt. So, we're providing the required accommodations along Lou DeWitt, 600 plus feet of public sidewalk, curb returns, crosswalk along
Ridgedale along our frontage. And then now we're being requested to extend those public accommodations across Lou DeWitt. And so, installing curb returns, putting in crosswalks, those type things are all kind of palatable to the design team and the developer. But when you talk about changing the signal and installing pedestrian accommodations and modifying the cabinet to allow for PED phases within signal, then you start to get into a lot of complexity baked into that. So at the core of the request, we'd like to understand a little bit more because we're not exactly comfortable with that condition number 6, and we'd like to better understand that that discussion. And then the last requirement about the public access easement, which is through the site, which is from Ridgedale, Page North to Page South, down to Bryant. In concept, that everyone's amenable to that, and it's what VDOT and the localities are looking for with interconnectivity of streets, right? So people aren't caught here or there. There's interconnectivity, and that's what makes traffic flow. But we would want to understand a little bit about what that agreement looks like, and that it may not be necessarily for this body this evening, but let's say we wanted to, have an event adjacent to the clubhouse, or there was a resident gathering between buildings 2 and 3, which are the buildings. Would that area be able to be closed for a little bit, or would we need to get a permit from the city to be able to facilitate that? So we just like to understand that a little bit more, but in theory, we like the interconnectivity. We're supportive of that condition, but we want to make sure that there wouldn't be any specific restrictions related to that within the development. And so I'll share that a little bit so we can dive into that. Ms. Tate touched on the transportation side. So, we've been working from the transportation side for 6 or 7 months now. We identified a scope of study with the project. I'm not going to go into the details of that because I think that was covered well in the staff report. But, talked about turn lanes and tapers being adequate, talked about access points on side streets, making the interconnected grid, and then touching on the pedestrian accommodations being proposed along Lou DeWitt Boulevard and then the connectivity to Ridgedale. To answer a quick question on Bryant, there is sidewalk shown on Bryant. So on the Page North side of Bryant, there's sidewalk connected. I don't have a laser pointer. And then it makes a left and goes into the development. And then as part of the Bryant Drive extension, there's also sidewalk being proposed by us on the other side of Bryant, which comes across the future Tiger Wash commercial access there on Bryant Drive. So there's kind of two pedestrian accommodations that are being extended along Bryant Drive, both on the north side and the south side of that particular road. So, our team is happy and committed to provide the pedestrian improvements, on really 3 sides of our development. I think the main question that we have is related to condition number 6 and where that request stops. This is kind of the first request along Lou DeWitt Boulevard where we're coming across where, we've kind of matched the similar expectations of the adjacent developments of, Napa, Tractor Supply, Secure Storage, those similar, public pedestrian improvements that have been done similarly along this same corridor. So I just share that a little bit as background. It is important to note as part of this project from an investment side that this project's being provided with no grants, no incentive packages from economic development or locality, no state or federal supportive funding. This is private dollars being invested in the city of Waynesboro. And I think that's really, really important because in this day and age, doing projects without any supportive measures from another party is pretty unique, and I think shares a little bit about the strength of Thomas Builders, which Garrett will share a little bit of background in just a minute. So you talk a little bit about the housing. City of Waynesboro, like many localities, struggles with the diversity of housing options and lack of inventory. I think we've touched on that. And one positive step that we've taken in many localities, including this one with the adjacent project at the town center, is providing additional stock to the inventory. So there are choices, there's additional options to help alleviate some of the current issues that we're experiencing, not only here in the city, but in other locations. Touched a little bit on the appropriateness of the zoning side. I'm not gonna get into that or the comp plan, 'cause I think that was well covered from that side. But, you know, corridor connectivity, good zoning practice from that end. I will share that, you know, and Garrett can cover this in just a minute in greater detail, but, you know, there's very few of this high quality apartments being constructed within the region, and we're excited to bring it before you all this evening, because there's a lot of aging infrastructure in a lot of different localities from an apartment standpoint, and there's not a lot of folks that are providing this high quality 4-story elevator serve type product, which is pretty exciting to continue to bring to Waynesboro. I'll touch real quickly on the building code side of the height question, because I think that was really important. And so what you'll see in a lot of construction and a lot of buildings, not only multifamily, but in the hospitality industry related to hotels, when you go above 4 stories, the building code changes, and it changes significantly. And so that's why you'll see a tremendous amount of buildings capped at that 4-story level, because it's an all-wood construction type setup. And once you go to 5, you get to a different building construction type, and it kind of changes the game. So I'll just share that as additional background. Those are my comments. Thanks for spending a couple minutes with me to listen to that, and I'll invite Garrett up to the podium to share a couple thoughts, and then we'll be happy to answer any questions that you all have generated.
Thank you, Ben. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council, for hearing us tonight and opportunity to get to speak and present this to you guys. I'll keep it brief because I know we've gotten a lot explained. I just wanted to tell you a little bit about our company, because I think it's a little different than most you probably see, and speak a little bit to the market, at least that we've seen. For more than a decade, we've been very active throughout Central and Southwest Virginia, designing and delivering communities. They combine thoughtful planning, quality construction, and long-term value. To date, we've delivered over 2,000 multifamily units, hundreds of single-family homes, and thousands of square feet of commercial and retail parcels throughout Virginia. One thing that really sets us apart is that we're not just simply bringing this project to rezoning and walking away. We're long-term owners and operators. We not only design, we also build, lease, and manage these properties that we present out here. One thing's been mentioned is we are all self-funded. We use small banks and stuff like that. We don't have a bunch of investors behind us. We're not doing joint venture projects. And a big reason for that is it really allows us to look at the community and do what we think's best for it and listen to feedback on that. One of our recent projects, which you're probably familiar with, I believe was mentioned earlier, is Elevate Apartments down at Town Center. And that thing has performed extremely well. Each building has been pre-leasing at roughly 50% or more prior to opening. We've been opening building by building. There's 5 buildings there. 3 are open. The 4th is set to open soon. And I think that speaks volumes to the strength of the Waynesboro market and the demand for quality housing. And I truly believe this project is an extension of that success and really aligns with the city's continued growth and housing needs. As was mentioned in the staff report, the vacancy rate remains extremely tight. It's below 2% in Waynesboro, and additional housing supply is clearly needed. We believe this project and this location are a strong fit to help that demand. This project proposes 232 apartments, which I think was mentioned earlier. The density, it matches what you normally would see for, 20 acres per, yeah.
20 acres per acre.
And write it down, I'm sorry. With a mix of 1s, 2s, and 3s, we do believe we can fit that, what's shown here, and with parking very comfortably based on other projects. These buildings, as Ben had mentioned, are all elevator served, interior corridor heated and cooled, very similar to Town Center project. This one takes a little more modern look with flat roofs and some contemporary colors. Our goal is not to simply just meet your expectations, but to exceed them by delivering this high quality housing that residents are really proud to call home. I thank you guys again for the opportunity to present, and appreciate any questions you guys have.
Thank you.
Any questions for the applicant?
I want Mr. Short to ask his question that he asked earlier, or I'm gonna ask it.
Which one was that?
The one regarding below market, because you guys didn't address it in your comments to us, and so if you can address that, and then also if you can speak to where you think, because you said 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, 3 bedrooms, where do you think the rates are? And I know that that's a kind of hairy situation, maybe a scary question at this point, but I mean, I'm sure you guys know what it is or have some idea. So let us know.
Yeah, I'd love to speak to all that.
Thank you.
So we've actually seen, it's a common question to get asked about more affordable housing, and especially in Waynesboro market, we've seen by bringing a higher class housing that really doesn't exist around here, nothing like this, it really actually frees up more of that housing. So instead of actually just putting it on this project, it allows people that are currently in something maybe that they don't love to move out of that and move into here. And that's a lot of what we see all the time in these communities, and that's what we really expect and have seen even with Town Center project we've done. Speaking to rents, we'll hold this to us because the market may shift, who knows, but what we're seeing right now is a 1 bed, 1 bath is going for around $1,300, $1,400, depending on the square footage. A 2 bed, 2 bath, around $1,400 to $1,500, and a 3 bed, 3 bath going for $1,800 to $1,900 per square.
So basically, you haven't addressed, I mean, I like how you put that, you couched that answer. But it totally evaded what I asked, or it told me, you didn't answer it, so it gave me an answer that you haven't addressed below market in this, right?
We've looked
And
at
what
it.
you're
It's a hard thing to financially make viable and make
I
the
got
project doable. And we've really, like I said, and we do evaluate it. We look at it,
Yeah,
and it's a market by market thing.
yes. I get you. I'm not trying to, tar and feather you, but I am trying to be transparent
Yeah,
because we will hear it. And so I'm asking you to address it so it comes out of your mouth so people can listen and hear what it is that, you're offering. And so I'll let someone else speak. Thank you.
Well, I think just as a piggyback, I think maybe to your comment, it's more of a observation relative to the comparison of expected infrastructure, right? So sidewalk placement on Lou DeWitt and then comparables to Napa or the storage facility or otherwise is that, combined, you're looking at 460 human beings living there, right? If 25% of them want to go walk over to Lowe's or go grab a burger at Five Guys, they're going to cross Lou DeWitt. So that's the difference. That's the distinction, I think, respectfully, that I think is not comparable to any of the other ones that are out there because, again, it's 400 human beings. So
We made some of those changes when they did the town center to make sure there was a pathway between
Exactly.
the apartments and the shopping center.
which we're grateful
Just for
for,
those reasons.
which we're grateful for, yeah, for the same exactly. That's a good excellent point. Yeah. So thank you.
I had one question. So percentage-wise, for your ones, your twos, and your threes, where do you, because I like the variety, because the 1-1 gives, the single person householder, just young couple, an opportunity to get into a place prior to, starting a family. But what percentage of those 200 plus units would be your ones, your twos, your threes? Kind of what are your priorities with that?
That's a really good question, and I actually appreciate you asking because I would have told you before COVID, we would have relied heavily on 3 bedrooms, but after COVID, people don't really want to live with other people. And I like my space, so I can't blame them. But we are looking at, so the 3 bigger buildings you see would all be 1s and 2s, and then the smaller building there would have a few 3 bedrooms in it. So a total count for you, we're looking at 111 1 bedrooms, 113 2 beds, and 8 3 beds.
Wow. Okay.
And I also will say that's also influenced by our other project, which was pretty heavy on 3 beds, and so seeing the market and be able to understand that a little bit.
The other project being the town center?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Where do, what percentage is that full now, the town center?
So we've got 3 buildings open. Just out of 3 buildings, we're probably 80%, 87% occupied.
Do you find that the people who are renting those buildings are Waynesboro citizens or people moving from out of the area?
I've seen mostly Waynesboro citizens. I'm not necessarily in the day-to-day operations, but from what I've seen of applications come through, I've seen a lot of Waynesboro citizens.
How do you target your potential renters, more marketing?
We just, apartments.com and stuff like that. We don't really pay for postings or anything like that. We post it on all your sites you can.
So you find that more young professionals, families?
A lot of young professionals. We've seen a few families, not as many as some other projects, but a lot of young professionals.
So I think the other one, I guess, if we're cool with Proffer 6, I guess, for the reasons I had stated, then I think the only other one was the special event permit, right? So the interconnection one, and I certainly want to press y'all, but also just want to get business done, right? So the special event permit process it's a form online, right? So if you wanted to go fill out a form, and the turnaround is pretty daggone quick. They're done administratively, with the exception of unless you guys are going to have like a hoot and holler, beer fest over there. They're done administratively. Am I right, Mike?
That's correct, yes.
So they're pretty. They're kind of nothing burgers for the permits. If that sounded reasonable, and we could even bake it in of expedited review or something reasonable, so that y'all, if you just decide on a whim on a Wednesday to have a party on a Saturday, then you can. But yeah, I would echo that. I think that would just free it up, particularly as this corridor continues to evolve, and how the terrain doesn't support itself to ever making connections to the back. Having loop-de-loops through something, I think, would be pretty helpful. So I don't know if that answers the party on the weekends question.
Yeah. I think we're just more or less wanting to understand the practicality behind what was expected, because it is a private drive that's maintained by us. So, what are the expectations? Is it open 24/7? Just kind of wanted to understand that a little bit more.
Yeah, I would, I don't know, put words in staff's mouths. We could push it and just and table, make a motion to table until y'all wanted to air it all out. But I don't think there'd be an expectation that you guys are going to be on the same snow pushing schedule that we're on, right? Because that's probably the thing that I would be worried about if I were you.
But I think we're trying to avoid a permanent blockage. And again, to Terry's point or Mr. Short's point, you're not going to be on our snow removal schedule. And the occasional block party, or if you have maintenance, those things are fine. But what we don't want to discover is 6 months down the road, all of a sudden there's a no private or no through traffic or that kind of thing.
Yep.
Yeah, no,
We'd be operating on completely if we got a complaint or went out and saw
Yes.
some issue.
Yes.
That was it.
yeah. No, I think that discussion's helpful to understand, to have it in the meetings, and so I think we've got a comfort level with that.
Yes. Yep.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. guys.
Do we have anyone signed up?
We do. Do we open the public hearing? Okay. All right. Eric Trinovich.
So, my comments were about Silver Creek, so I'm not gonna take a lot of time, but I do wonder why the road across from Brine Creek with future Tiger Wash, why doesn't that just try to connect to the Walmart? Wouldn't that alleviate the through traffic through that townhome community? You know what I mean? If you look on the map, there's nothing blocking that I can see from where the future Tiger Wash road ends. to
That's
the
great.
Walmart.
It's the constructability, yeah. It's the grade. See the skip dash lines over by the legend? Yeah.
So it's just not possible at all?
Yeah, well, I think maybe for the benefit of the folks at home, Mr. Mayor, if you wouldn't mind maybe him coming to the podium. Just so our friends in YouTube can yeah.
But this is the same problem with all these new neighborhoods that are going in that I've talked to all of you about multiple times. All of these people are going to have to go out and around. They're going to drive miles out of the way to try to get to Walmart, right? There's no way for any of these new neighborhoods to connect to each other or to connect to any shopping center. So by adding 230 more cars on Lou DeWitt, we're just going to create more traffic. All of those cars are going to have to go to all of these traffic lights, and they're all going to clog Rosser and Lou DeWitt and all of these other places. I think this looks beautiful, but I don't understand why we have to cram a house in every single place in this town when all of these roads are already overly trafficked and busy. Have any of you tried to drive from the center of town to the Target? It takes 30 minutes. And now we're going to add 230 plus vehicle trips a day among the other 7 or 8 housing projects that have already been going on in this town for a while. It just doesn't make sense. I know we want tax revenue. I know we want to grow and improve, but we're growing so quickly that all of that money is going to have to go to take care of all of these problems that you guys are allowing to happen by just cramming houses in every single spot in this town. It's sad and it's disappointing. And if there's no way for it to meet there, that just doesn't seem feasible to me. It's always about money and who has to spend it. And eventually it's going to be the citizens that have to spend the money to clean up all of these problems. And unfortunately, we're only going to be mad at you. We're not going to be mad at them or him or anyone else. We're all going to be pissed because you guys have to keep raising our taxes to fix problems that should have been fixed during construction, when it could at least be partially absorbed by the builders who are they're going to make $350,000 a month based off average rent on this building. So it's definitely not money. It's just no one wants to force anyone's hand to do the right thing in this town, and it's disappointing. Thank you.
Wayne Nolde.
Wayne Nolde, 1008 High Point Court, Waynesboro. My only comment in regard to this particular zoning amendment is to support the Proffer 6 that says we need to get a crosswalk across Lou DeWitt. You know, you're adding more dwellings here. There's Creekwood Village. It's on and on, as Eric was talking about, all these other places. At what point do we get to the point where you can't safely cross Lou DeWitt? I'm a bicyclist, and while I probably won't bicycle there very much, I read lots of magazine articles related to this, and it just becomes unsafe to try to cross streets like that without the infrastructure. As Eric would say, let's make it part of this development. It's not like a Tractor Supply or an Advance Auto. This is a lot of people, not just from this development, but the other people that'll come through there. So council needs to start, in my opinion, requiring improvements as we're done, unless you're going to start setting up budgets to just go in and do these things later. And I won't disagree that it will cost significantly more to modify the signals for the pedestrian things than just to put a crosswalk across. There's a big difference there. But look at the projects the city's doing now for ADA ramps and that type of thing. They don't come cheap to the taxpayer if you have to do them later. And one final comment, and I'm not at all trying to reflect on this developer because I know nothing about them and I do not want to impinge on their reputation. But my comment is more related to the process. Don't let developers blackmail you with the threat of legal action or something like that to say, you got to do this, you got to approve these proffers, you got to eliminate these proffers or whatever. Stand up for the citizens of Waynesboro. Thank you.
Hereby close the public hearing on the zoning amendment. hereby open the public hearing on the conditional use permit.
Edith Ekman.
Good evening. I live at 229 Morgan Court in the Pratt's Run subdivision. And in answer to your question, it's already unsafe to cross Lou DeWitt as a pedestrian. I can't walk to Walmart safely. Excuse me, there is actually nowhere along Lou DeWitt that is currently safe for a pedestrian to cross, and I see that happen all the time. We have had increasing numbers of people running the red light there at the Lowe's intersection and turning into Lowe's from Lou DeWitt as if Bryant Drive doesn't exist. They treat the Lowe's entrance just like they're turning right off Bryant Drive. So that's already a dangerous intersection for those of us coming up Bryant Drive in our cars. And so for pedestrians, it's even worse. A crosswalk and signals would certainly help. This is your opportunity, as others have said, to have the developer take on some of this. When you're adding that many units and that much traffic, you definitely are going to have people crossing. I would like to be able to walk to Walmart instead of get in my car. So I think it would help current citizens as well as the people who are going to be moving in. And I think if we want Waynesboro to be a forward-thinking, pedestrian-friendly city, it's time to not kick the can down the road and start creating these infrastructure improvements as we develop our land. And I don't really think this is a bad idea in general. I just would like to see the traffic and the pedestrian questions taken care of. Thank you.
Doug Nolan.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, I'm Doug Nolan, live at 105 Jasper Lane. I'm the president of the Pratt's Run Owners Association. You saw a map of our subdivision when they showed that early on. We have a unit of 75 duplexes and triplexes. And additionally, over there are some single-family homes. For all of those units, the access onto Lou DeWitt is Bryant Drive. That is the sole access to our subdivision. Right now, the entrance at Lowe's is dangerous. Folks run the stop sign. Folks turning into Lowe's sometimes get backed up onto Lou DeWitt. So that planning of that intersection was poorly done. We have an opportunity now for you guys when you're looking at the planning, because you're adding with 232 units, 250 automobiles into that area, which was significant impact on us to look at. I do have a procedural problem in that when I looked at the material on Friday, the staff recommendations went through number 6. Number 7, the one about the access through the development for the other folks, was not in that, so that there was effectively no notice of that condition before the meeting tonight, which poses a little problem to me. I do applaud staff's recommendation to have a pedestrian walkway. We have seen, well, crossing Lou DeWitt Boulevard, we see people doing it. They do it midway between lights. It's dangerous anywhere to cross Lou DeWitt, but they should be doing it someplace where we have some sort of controls and some protection for folks to be able to cross the street. When these developers talked about developing the apartments at the Target Shopping Center, they talked about the pedestrian access, about being able to walk around the shopping center. So presumably, we would presume that there would be pedestrians who would be walking from this development too. So it's reasonable to request that crosswalk. I would add, Councilman Short, if a hoot and holler beer fest is going on, we'd like to get notice of it. Thank you very much for your consideration.
So then the final sign up are representatives for the developer. Mr. Moore and Mr. Crew.
I hereby close the public hearing on the conditional use permit. I guess I have a question. My concern is with the ADA crossing. So it seems that the applicant wants to get a better understanding of that requirement. And I don't think that that's doable here. So with that uncertainty or that particular issue not being clear, I'm not comfortable with any type of way forward at this session to introduce the ordinance.
Well, I heard, Mr. Mayor, I'm sorry, but I saw heads nod that you guys were going to be cool with it, based off of the sheer number of pedestrians that were going to be generated from the site.
That's what I thought, but then
I saw heads nod, but maybe I wanted to see heads nod. So
some clarification.
No, Mayor Lee, I appreciate the comment on that. You know, hearing the concerns and the background related to that, I think we've got a better comfort level with proffer number 6. It's a little bit unique where Tiger Car Wash is putting in a portion of the signal, and so we'll coordinate between staff and them for the improvements, which is a little bit unique. But I think it's important enough to the project that we want to make sure to include that part of it. We don't have the capacity or the due diligence timing to continue this, and so we need to move forward with that. And so at this time, I'll just share on behalf of Thomas Builders that we don't have to be comfortable with the conditions, but as they're provided by staff. But we're okay to provide those improvements as part of the project.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions, concerns?
I think just point of order for Ms. Michelson is but the procedural with the addition of a interconnection prior to public
No,
posting.
there's no due process or notice issues. All the Virginia Code requires is just a summary of what was going to be discussed, which was what was included, an additional matter to be discussed in the same subject matter, I don't think is material. And anybody that would want to hear about and discuss, you know.
We heard about it.
They would have come anyway.
Yeah, okay.
Great. And it was included later that day. We did an amendment and added 5, and then later in the day did an amendment and added 6. So it was there, just.
Okay, yeah, cool. I just don't want to undo anything, so, okay, cool.
All right. Is there a motion to introduce the ordinance rezoning the parcel at 0 Lou DeWitt Boulevard?
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Sloat. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Short. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, 5-0. Is there a motion to introduce the ordinance granting the conditional use permit requested for 0 Lou DeWitt Boulevard?
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Sloat. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Short. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, 5-0. Item 14 is to hold a public hearing to consider adopting an ordinance amending the fiscal year 2026 budget in the amount of $3,512,692. Mr. McCormick.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, member of council. This item was introduced at your April 27th, 2026 city council meeting. It was then properly noticed for the public hearing this evening. After the public hearing, you can call the question. If you have any questions on the contents of the budget amendment, I'd be happy to answer them now.
Any questions? I hereby open the public hearing.
No one has signed up to speak.
I hereby close the public hearing. All in favor of adopting the ordinance amending the FY 2026 budget say,
You need a motion.
oh, I'm sorry. Is there a motion to adopt the ordinance amending the FY 2026 budget?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Short. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Wood. All in favor of adopting the ordinance amending the FY 2026 budget, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Ayes have it, 5-0. Item 15 is to consider adopting 3 resolutions of support for grant applications supporting the development of Nature's Crossing Technology Center and Waynesboro Commerce and Industry Park. The applications are U.S. Department of Commerce, Economic Development Administration, Economic Adjustment Assistance Grant, a VEDP Business Ready Sites Program Grant, Commonwealth Transportation Board Economic Development Access Funds. Mr. Hitchens?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of council. As you stated, we are here tonight to seek your support for three different grants that we're working on. And just as a matter of review, I know we talk about this stuff all the time, but Nature's Crossing Technology Center is the 170-acre parcel that's off of Delphine. Waynesboro Commerce and Industry Park is the 35 acres remaining of our legacy industrial park between the businesses off Shenandoah Village Drive and Interstate 64. And Tier 4 is a state level of site readiness, and that means all infrastructure is in place and all due diligence is complete. You've also seen this map before. I'm glad to report that we can cross a couple of things off as we get closer to finishing this project. What we have tonight is, what we have left is the water tank on the east side represented by the yellow dot, and the continuation of the sewer line and the continuation of the water line to the public systems. Looking at that same information in chart form, the on-site water, sewer, and pipes was 100% grant funded by the state, and that will be completed in June. The next 3, the due diligence, the off-site water and sewer design, and the elevated water storage tank, was also grant funded at 2/3, 1/3, so 2/3 grant, 1/3 local funds. Those will all be completed this month. The water tank construction, we have applied for a federal grant to cover roughly 50% of that, and that application is pending. And tonight, 2 of the grants will be looking for funds for the off-site water and sewer construction. And I apologize, my slides are the different order than they are read. But the first grant is a state grant, the Virginia Business Ready Sites Program. This is for the off-site water and sewer construction and grading. Total estimate of this project is $32 million, and that is a 2-for-1 match. So it's 2/3, 1/3 match. The second grant is the second federal grant, also for the off-site water and sewer construction, which is $7.2 million. We would be asking for a grant of $3 million. And the federal grant can be used as a match for the state grant and vice versa. So if we were successful in getting both of them, it would significantly reduce our expenses. The third grant, is for the Waynesboro Commerce Industry Park. The yellow line at the bottom here is the Shenandoah Village Drive extension, the Southern Corridor Road. And this red line is what we're talking about here. So the Virginia Department of Agriculture, through the Commonwealth Transportation Board, has an access road design program. The maximum value of that is $150,000. We've worked with our on-call engineering firm, and they feel they can design that road for $150,000. So the grant would cover the total cost of that. I'll be happy to answer any clarifications or details about each of the 3 grants.
Any questions for Mr. Hitchens?
I guess in terms of a form of a motion, would it be amenable to partition out grant A and B separately and then C individually?
If council supports all 3,
I can't vote on the Commonwealth Transportation Board one.
okay. All right. So is there, so which one?
Well, I can make a motion, Mr. Mayor, to support adopting resolutions for item A, which is the U.S. Department of Commerce Economic Development Administration Economic Adjustment Assistance Grant, and the Virginia Economic Development Partnership Business Ready Sites Grant Program.
I'll second that motion.
Thank you. A motion has been made by Mr. Short to accept U.S. Department of Commerce Economic Development Administrative Economic Adjustment Assistance Grant and the BEDP Business Ready Sites Program Grant, seconded by Mr. Sloat. All in favor of accepting those, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Ayes have that, 5-0. Is there a motion to accept and support the Commonwealth Transportation Board Economic Development Access Funds Grant?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Mr. Wood. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Sloat. All in favor of accepting that grant, say aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it, 4-0.
I'll abstain.
Short.
And Mr. Short, can you clarify why you're abstaining? I mean,
I work for the Virginia Department of Transportation, reports to the Commonwealth Transportation Board.
okay, thank you.
Item 16, communications correspondence calendar.
Just a reminder that the Virginia Street Arts Festival is being hosted this weekend downtown, so I'm sure interested residents can see progress toward that celebration, and just encourage folks to come down and enjoy it and be alert to some downtown street closures over the weekend, but Saturday and Sunday this weekend. That's all I have.
Item 17, citizens comment. Do you have anyone signed up?
William Cromwell. Okay. Laura Riggin?
So I would remind all speaking at citizen comments, you have 4 minutes. Green light will come on. You have 30 seconds left. The yellow light will come on so you can have time to wrap up.
Good evening, members of City Council. My name is Laura Riggin. I live on Village Drive in the city of Waynesboro. I'm speaking to you tonight on behalf of the Waynesboro Education Association, the local union for the education professionals of Waynesboro Public Schools. It is the end of the semester. Teachers will soon be preparing report cards, and students, we hope, are working diligently to finish up their assignments, pass final tests, and achieve their academic goals. Report cards help us all to have closure on the school year. Here in City Council chambers, we've spent a fair amount of time together over the last 3 or 4 months. I've attended almost every council meeting since January, along with many other citizens of Waynesboro, teachers, parents, and taxpayers. Although your year does not end with final exams or the beginning of summer break, we thought it might be appropriate to give City Council an assessment of your achievements on behalf of local schools this year. Let me explain a few things about this. Honestly, since it's not the official end of a grading period for you, I'd say that really happens on Election Day, I prefer to think of this evaluation as a progress report. Like my students, when we are only halfway through a grading period, you have the opportunity to make changes before the final grade is issued if you feel that the current evaluation does not reflect your best work. Also, I'll remind you that grades are neither rewards nor punishment. They're communication of strengths and weaknesses. I hope that you will receive this in that spirit. After careful consideration, the educators of WEA have assessed your progress in support of public education as a C. We're basing our evaluation on your support of our public schools. You've dealt most directly with schools this year in 2 ways. First, you've agreed to fund the renovation of Waynesboro High School. It's a significant investment in the city and its youngest citizens, and very much needed. Thank you for recognizing and answering this need. However, you've also demonstrated the level of your support for our public schools by way of your proposal to institute a cap on the revenues you budget for our schools. A cap is a cut, and that proposal was discouraging and upsetting for those of us who place public schools at the top of local priorities. I'd like to give you cheers for bringing this grade up from where it was a couple of months ago. You listened to the citizens who came here to speak, and you backed away from your proposed funding limit. But you haven't yet convinced us that you are doing your best for public schools. Instead of promising, as individuals or as a collective council, that you will absolutely oppose any funding cap for our local schools, you have tabled the issue until a later date, November, maybe after elections. We're still waiting for all of you, for each of you, to demonstrate and vocalize your unwavering support for our public schools. There is still room for improvement, and there is still room for a higher grade. We're choosing to issue this grade for you collectively, like a group project. When I assign group projects to my students, I recognize that sometimes there are individuals who do more of the work than others. However, I try to encourage teamwork, so I always tell my students that unless there is obvious evidence that they don't deserve the same grade as a team, they're all getting the same grade. You all have seemed to work quite well together in how you decided to support public schools. I didn't hear any public dissension from any of you over the school budget, over the proposal to cap the school budget, and I haven't heard any advocacy from any of you as individuals for closing the funding gap that spans the borders between Waynesboro and our neighboring school districts. I applaud you for your leadership, your willingness to sit on that dais, put yourselves in positions of vulnerability, and make tough decisions for our community. There are really big problems in our world today, and neither you nor I can solve most of them ourselves. The issue of public school funding in Waynesboro doesn't have to be one of them. This is an easy place to do the right thing and put the discussion of cuts to our public school funding permanently off the table. Thank you.
Kurt Lilly.
Good evening, Kurt Lilly, 649 Walnut Avenue. Let me start out with, a cap is not a cut. You can grade yourselves on how you tax the citizens of Waynesboro. I'm assuming that the income to the city's never been higher. Many new businesses and housing tracts continue to grow, providing tax dollars to the city. Let's look at the taxes. Trash and water, I think that's going up. Stormwater, personal property tax, business tooling tax, which just incentivizes businesses to not invest in their business. Restaurant tax, lodging tax, sales tax, property tax. I don't want you to think that raising property tax only taxes the property owners. Property owners pass those taxes on in higher rent rates. Those higher rents make it harder to save up for a first home. For the elderly on fixed incomes, you're putting them on a reduced income. Yet with all the extra income, I understand that the rate you're proposing is going to raise the taxes. I'm urging you to go ahead and keep the taxes at the flat rate, the expense that we actually have now, and not increase our taxes. Thank you.
Eric Trinovich.
I'm back. Good evening. My name is Eric Trinovich. I am a resident of Silver Creek Phase 1. Thank you guys. I know it's been a long night for all of us. We all do other jobs outside of this, so I appreciate you hanging out so late with us. I feel for the 5 of you sitting up there. It must feel at times that regardless of what you decide, you still lose in some capacity. Such is the burden of public service, I suppose. I truly believe that all of you are in a no-win situation regarding the proffers and the neighborhood of Silver Creek itself. As Mr. Wood stated after the last special meeting, you were told by the city lawyers there was no legal grounds to deny the proposal, regardless of public or personal sentiment, and to vote no is to risk a lawsuit against the city. Voting yes, however, has caused a loss of trust and confidence in your voters. I've already talked tonight about how the continued approval of high-density housing projects is going to cause us a lot of problems in the future. If the mayor and city council have no legal way to say no, then maybe we need to reassess the legal paths available to the city or decide if different city leadership would be a better path forward.
You all must surely recognize that compromising the education of our children and the tranquility of our community always carries consequences when it's time to vote. Moving forward, I plan to attend as many of these meetings as possible to remind you of your responsibility to the citizens who elected you to your positions. I look forward to learning more about the City Council and keeping all of you accountable to the citizens who ultimately hold the power. Mr. Wells, I hope for your success in the construction of these homes. As I've said, we've always preferred a local builder over a national entity. Our main goal was and is to ensure Phase 2 adheres to the spirit and design guidelines of Phase 1 while trying to lessen your construction impact on the current neighborhood. This project could have been a wonderful opportunity for all of us. Welcoming 100 new families into our community should have been an amazing experience. I know there has to be a way for us to work together. You spoke to us, Mr. Wells, about being a hometown guy, growing up and attending school here, and even sharing a funny story about getting a speeding ticket on Bookerdale. Yet your strong desire to retain the Silver Creek name, coupled with your unwillingness and disregard to work with the current residents, or at least provide assurances of your actual plan, is a profound and laughable contradiction. Instead, you tell us to get over it, to move on, and I don't have to work with you. While technically that is correct, this risks more division and appears inconsistent with the image of a hometown guy. I do not know who has advised you to take this tactic, but I strongly urge you to get out of your own way and be a constructive part of the Silver Creek community you are so eager to profit from. I will be hoping for the best, but planning for the worst. The current citizens of Silver Creek also lose, but I wonder if we were ever had a chance to win. It seems to me that the current laws and regulations are not set up to help regular citizens, but to help protect corporate interests like Mr. Wells, leaving us to just navigate the fallout. Some of this has been self-inflicted. As Mr. Wells pointed out, we missed our opportunity to strengthen the community's position. We should have taken a stronger stance at having the HOA and the ARB turned over to the residents from a developer who seemingly lost interest in the neighborhood about 2 years ago. However, I'm not sure if that would have made much of a difference. Mr. Wells has stated many times that since he now owns 100 lots, I am the HOA, sometimes to seemingly act tough, and on one occasion as a veiled threat. Regardless of everyone's past missteps, the path forward is quite clear. If you are unable or unwilling to be a constructive part of the original phase, at the very least change the name of Phase 2. Allow both neighborhoods to operate independently. This will allow you to build or do whatever you deem reasonable and profitable, while giving us the peace of mind that lesser quality or lesser priced homes will not negatively impact the values of the current Silver Creek custom-built homes. The integrity of this city rests on the promises made to its citizens. For the City Council, accountability for the future of Waynesboro's infrastructure and school starts now. For Mr. Wells, the path to being a genuine hometown guy requires respect for the community you seek to join and cooperation to protect Phase 1 residents.
Sir, I have to cut you off.
We leave this chamber committed to upholding the promise of Silver Creek. We will not stop watching, and we will not cease advocating for the future of our families.
Oh, boy.
I think that's it. It is.
Thank you. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Short. Is there a second?
Second.